is advised.
Welcome to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio, wherever fine talk shows are sold. I've got some ideas that I want to go through in this first hour, so let me make sure I'm not badly tasking. I don't think that anybody really multitasks. I think that people badly task. They do many things badly, many things at the same time, and they do them all less well. Badly tasking. That's what you're doing. You're not multitasking. You're badly tasking. You're tasking everyone, and you're probably going to cause a car accident. So don't do that. Don't do that. You can check the message later. Check the message later. I am working on my book, working on a lot of things, working on the sequel of sorts to Official Stories, American Heretic. It's taken me, hello motorcycles outside, it's taken me, it's 4 years. I didn't try to write a sequel for 4 years. I guess about 2 years into it, into this pause between nonfiction books, I really started to look at it, and I had a lot of titles for what Official Stories 2 would be. I had one called How to Destroy the World, which was so bleak in its bitter black comedy that I just didn't have the heart to go through with it, because I wasn't really offering anything except, painful sardonicness. That's not really what I do. I mean, I get there, but I have to offer some kind of solution. I have to. It's just my programming. I can't just say we're all going to die. I have to say we're all going to die, but there's a lifeboat, and you have to kill 3 people to get there, but try. Just try. So, and then I had another Myth America. I just decided, I'd really come to terms, after investigating religion, Christianity, the whole Jesus question. What was the other thing? Oh, yeah, marriage and fidelity and all this other stuff that, nothing is as what we're told. Nothing is what we're told. So I thought I could get through almost all of them in a book and keep the tone light. But every time I started writing a history book. And if I wanted to talk about marriage and relationships, I don't want to be unfair. we love the people we love, and I'm in a good relationship, and I don't begrudge relationships or love. But the Western marriage system isn't based on love. It's based on, we'll talk about that during the show. The Western marriage system can involve love, but it doesn't have to be based on love. The Eastern marriage system can involve love, but it doesn't have to be based on love. And so we have many, many problems that come out of the system, and I will talk about that probably in the second hour. The Jesus thing, I've talked about that a lot. If you haven't heard that or researched it, if you research Roman history, and I was a Latin student for a couple years, and history of Roman antiquity for a long time, you never hear about a character called Jesus because he's not there in Roman history. He's only there in this thing called the Bible. So you have to determine who wrote the Bible and why they wrote it and when they wrote it, when it was compiled. And once you do that, you go, okay, they're funning with us. They didn't have an actual guy. They had a series of movements. They had political movements, and semi-spiritual movements were co-opted by political movements and then co-opted by the Roman government itself as a way to better manage, the poor people. Tell people that the best thing they can do is want to be poor, and, you've won, haven't you? Not to take away people's, loving position of having somebody they talk to who is bigger than them, who has a compassionate position of an uncompassionate world. And I understand that. I relate to that. I pray to the things that I pray to. But if we took away that word, Jesus, plus all the baggage that it carries by being made adjunct to the ancient Hebrew books of, population management and sky magic, they're very different ideas, and they don't really belong in the same religion or the same conversation. And maybe I'll talk about that more on the show. So I got through that, and I said, that's not true, and I thought about writing a book about that, but there are books about that. And I didn't really want to be fighting that issue for all my life, or going on radio shows forever and ever saying, what all you people believe isn't true, it's not even logical, because those aren't really the people I want to fight, religious people today do a little bit of harm, but they don't do the harm that the sciences do. And the sciences can commit genocide on mass scales. They can get into the gay community and get everybody to do this sort of programmatic suicide by taking AIDS drugs when they're not sick, when they're not even HIV positive, and they can convince people that HIV positive means something, even when they know that the tests, well, don't. They're multifactorial. So there, and there. There's just really an endless list of things that are myths. So I thought about Myth America. The Oil Alarm was a book I was going to write. Instead, I made a movie. You can watch that on YouTube. Made it with a group called Heal the Planet. Heal the Planet. They funded the animation, and the animation was done by Eric Rogerson. It's very good, lively animation, easy to follow. That just says oil is a limited resource. We use it like it's not. Everything that we do is reliant on it. When it runs out, where do you think we're going to be? We better start getting together in communities and growing food. So it's a positive message, not always my thing, but a positive message. Not an HIV positive message, just a positive message. Sorry, there's a Scottish comedian, and one of his running jokes for a long time, anytime the word positive came up, not HIV. However, they say H in Scotland, he would say, no, HIV positive. I'm having a very positive feeling about this relationship. I meant to say an HIV positive. Audience goes crazy because he dares say the unsayable, dares speak the unspeakable thing. I think everybody knows there was something wrong with the idea. They just didn't know what it was. But that's not what I wanted to write the book about. I didn't just want to write official stories too and say, well, fluoride is bad and HIV is bad again, and 9/11 again was a thing to go get oil. I ended up writing long tracts and treaties, Colin J. Campbell, petroleum geologist, his stories about Afghanistan, the man in the cave, the need to build a pipeline to get to the oil that was going to be in the Russian area that then turned out not to be. And then the move was immediately to go into Iraq. Stories, maybe it hasn't been told enough, but it's not what I felt like doing or telling. So I just, took a pause. I would do something else. I would make some of these little graphic things. I would write something else. I would read about permaculture, study a little bit of permaculture, build a garden bed for somebody, grind my teeth some more so that I have to go to the dentist and pay $1 billion to get my teeth either filled or crowned, money that I do not have. Oh, God. I should have worn a dental guard 15 years ago, but I didn't want to sleep with plastic in my mouth, and now I'm going to have to sleep with everything in my mouth. Whatever they put in your mouth for fillings, and I don't want caps. I don't know if they can just fill them in a little bit, or maybe... And please don't send me the drink bone broth thing. I've been taking so many supplements that have so much cow a-hole in them, I don't even know what I'm turning into. I've got so much... what is that called? Mitochondritin, chondritin, MSM, everything. MICKUI, MSUSC. Believe me, I'm trying to rebuild them. But I don't think you can I think that you can heal a cavity to some degree. I doubt you can rebuild a great deal of dentin. And I've got 20 years of grinding going on. So that's my tooth problem. If we're going to go through all my problems, the hair is definitely thinning in the back to a significant degree. So I might have to start clipping the hair a little bit shorter. So if it just all goes away, it's just not like a big sudden shock. Yes, also the shoulder. Injured, not getting worse, not getting worse, not getting a lot better, not getting worse, not getting a lot better, not getting worse. It's 45 years old. It's the Liam Scheff Show. That's what it looks like. I held off old age for a long time and held on to a patina, a glimmering of youth for a long time, or youthfulness. Not that it's all gone, but definitely aging, definitely aging. Good times, good times. You don't want to stick around this shithole forever, do you? I mean, come on, look at this planet. Gotta get out of the way so these idiot kids with their iPhones can take over and become the cannibals that we know will take over the earth after the next great crash. Me? I don't know. So I've been writing and taking pauses from writing, and I've written and taken pauses from writing, and I've reformatted this book 150 times. And when it doesn't work, I come back to it in a couple of days, and if it still doesn't sing to me, I just get rid of it. I mean, I don't think that a book should be, you don't want to birth a baby you don't want to birth. I don't know. As you write it, you're either going to put the energy into forming it or you're going to let it go. And because I'm not writing for contract and I'm not writing on a deadline except my own, and I'm writing for a fan base, loyal, small if loyal fan base, free critical thinkers, very critical thinkers, but I think more free, but not stupidly free. Not Nibiru's going to come with the Anunnaki and the Egyptians are going to give us the free energy device and the 0 point thing will help us float through the rest of our lives, kind of free thinking, but critically thinking about the world without being so pessimistic and sardonic or mean that they just give in to the big crunch, the idea that it's just all going away. No, I think the people who are listening to this are people who believe that the universe is a connected place and they feel connected to it. I don't know why science doesn't like that. Back to the idea, though, the book. So it's come along in fits and spurts. I told you I'd talk about sex in the second hour. Just relax. Anyway, fits and spurts. Sorry, what if there was a guy, his name was like Fitzgibbons or Fitzgerald or whatever, and so people called him Fitz, right? And then he had a partner, and spurts, you know what I'm saying? Like it could be N spurts, or it could be and the last name could be like a cop, Fitz and no? Okay. Fits and spurts. Spurts, and spurts could be a girl, and Fitz could be a guy. Fitz, I don't want you. I don't want you jeopardizing this case again. Shut up. I'll do it the Fitz way. Wow, Fitz. I don't know why that makes me laugh. Jesus. Fits and spurts. Cops. Fits and spurts. Cops solving the unsolvable crimes of Los Angeles. Hey, Spurts, what do you see over here? Oh, Fitz, would you put down that cadaver's... I don't know where I'm going with this. I got to write it up. Fits and Spurts. It's coming to a theater near you. I can't wait. Fits and Spurts 2, The Reckoning. Spurtsinator. There's something there. Shut up. All right, whatever. So I'm writing my new book. It's called Fits and Spurts, The Reckoning, Part 2. It's called Son of Bride of Frankenstein. It's called Dracula's Revenge on Kong. It's called King Kong versus Mount Dracula. Yes, it's no longer a count. He's a mountain. It's called Crash of the Titans. Not Wrath of the Titans, but Crash of the Titans. It's called Bull Durham 2. Really Bull Durham. Old Bull Durham. Bullshit Durham. It's called... So... I've been able to resuscitate some things, though, from a couple of years ago that when I was first working on an idea for the official stories, the thing that came to my mind after I went through I always go through cycles. It's the Gemini in me, and then the Taurus in me stays in those places for a while, so I'll cycle through, not quickly, but like over 6 months. So most Geminis have about like a 28-second attention span, and I'll go for 6 months on something, like just deadly focus, just laser eye focus. Sometimes 3, sometimes if it's not that interesting, 3 weeks. But usually I don't just come up with an idea and leave. As I did religion, it was a good year and change, and the sex thing was another year. And astronomy I was really into for a long time, and now I'm into it again. So it comes around. But I had an idea for a book called "You Are Free" because of course. It was the Bill Hicks thing, and he's standing up there and he says, "You are free to do what we tell you. You are free to do what we tell you. You are free to do what we tell you." And I thought, God damn it. If you think about America as a list of freedoms, you're free to eat poison, you're free to have your children taken away from you, you're free to let them be injected with poison by strangers, or they'll be taken away from you. You're free to eat poison all day long that has many, many colors and makes you think that it tastes good, but really gets you addicted to it. So this whole list was flying out of me, George Carlin style, as fast as it could be. And I thought, well, that's a great basis for a book. And I started writing it, and I had a lot of stuff, but it was all so cynical. And again, I'm not just cynical, and there were no solutions, and there was no happy moment. So I couldn't write it as a book, but I'm able to resuscitate that for part of this book, so I'm happy about that. But then that feeds into something else, which is an idea about... Now, the last version of the book I had me introducing something called a mythometer, and I thought this was a great innovation. I told my friend Joni about it, a lot of people, and they liked it. They all liked it. I said, the mythometer. And I said, it's a great tool that you can use. You can walk out, you be a critical thinker, and you can say, no, sorry, it fails the mythometer. Well, what's the mythometer? Well, a mythometer tells you if something is very probably or more likely a myth, or very probably or more likely factual or in good evidence, historical. I said, well, how does it work? Well, you plug it in, you ask yourself these basic questions. Does it violate the rules of history, biology, physics, and chemistry? If it does those things, if it violates all those things, it's probably a myth. Okay, take Muhammad. There's really no good historical evidence for Muhammad. He's said to have lived, I think, way too long for a person. Oh, and forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. I mean, don't declare a fatwa. I don't mean Muhammad, the religious figure. I mean Muhammad, the guy I used to know next door. So so you go on with this, and you say, well, he was, accused or whatever of actually talking to the deity and having this experience, which is unique among all people. All right, that breaks the laws that we know of history, but it conforms to laws of psychology that say that people can imagine all kinds of things. How about Jesus? Moving on from Muhammad, so I don't get the fatwa. Just kidding, everybody. Allah Akbar, whatever I'm supposed to say. By the way, bless you Christians for allowing people to make fun of you. No, seriously. Because the Muslims, man, I mean, really? You're not allowed... You know what I'm saying? It's religion. We're supposed to be able to joke about it. No. Can't do that. Can't joke about it. No jokes. Most Christians, though, have been so walloped by history. They're like, yeah, okay, make fun of my Jesus. That's fine. Jesus, please forgive them. Forgive them, Jesus. Because there's nothing anybody can do. I mean, the whole Middle Ages beat us to the punch. Geoffrey Chaucer beat us to the punch. The joke's been going on for so long. Eventually Islam will get there, but not right now. Not right now. Salam alaikum. Whatever. I was talking to a Muslim acquaintance that I know, and she wears there's a rags around her head. It's not a burqa. Well, it's not a burqa. Maybe. It's something that covers her face and goes around her cheeks. And I got into a big argument with her because she's, very Western and very anti-bad science and very anti a lot of things. And I sat there looking at her and I said, why do you wear that? She said, oh, God, I said, yeah, but you're against people telling you what to do. You're very against people telling you what to do. You don't like people telling you what to do. You're against governments telling you what to do. You're against your school telling you what to do. You don't like anybody telling you what to do. And then you let this ancient religion, this thing that you don't even understand, that you don't know is historically true from this book that nobody can really understand. It's clearly not a history book. That's meant to be, memorized in kind of a trance state to convince you that you're a good enough true believer. You're letting the prelates of this thing, the people declaring fatwas, say that you're not a good person unless you cover your head with that thing. And she said, well, I said, you love it when I make fun of Christianity. You love it when I tell you that Jesus is probably not an historical figure, and ancient Judaism is not historically true, that there was no historical Moses, and that the period that they're talking about, the Jews might have been the Hyksos rather than the slaves in Egypt, might have been a ruling class, a ruling dynasty in Egypt. Oh yeah, she loves that. She loves that. She's Muslim. She loves it. Loves it. So I said, why do you cover your whole head in fear? God doesn't care about... you think the creator of the universe has time to worry about your fucking haircut? You really think that? I mean, and she laughs, barely, and then we keep going, and I say, this isn't historical, right? I mean, you're smart enough to figure out that the vaccine stuff is a lie, so what about this religious stuff? Why can't you figure out that this isn't necessarily true? Well, I don't want to talk about that. And finally, I said, wait a second, in Saudi Arabia, they make people wear this. What if you went to Saudi Arabia? Would you wear it? She said, no. I said, fucking A. You're not wearing this because you're religious. You're wearing this because you're mad at somebody. You're mad at dad. You're mad at mom. You're mad at culture. You're mad at somebody. And I feel that way about a lot of very strong, fundamentalisms. People believe things because they have an emotional investment in proving something wrong. People who believe very, very, very strongly in the absolute truth and perfection of science have an axe to grind with religion. They think that by taking the absolute side of science, they'll overwhelm religion. Christopher Hitchens thought that. He acted as though he took mealy-mouthed bullshit statements pled out by totally dishonest scientists, that somehow he'd be doing a better, challenge to religion. But his book, God is Not Great, is full of historical and logical, factual fallacies, because he just repeated gobbledygook that was sort of anti-Christian, rather than saying, well, why do people believe things that aren't true? Why do people believe things that aren't true? So I guess that's the question. Why do people believe things that aren't true? And if you put things through the mythometer, which I didn't forget it, which I was very proud of, you can come up with the idea that if you can't prove something historically, or if it breaks the rules of history, for example, if somebody's supposed to have been very famous or something huge happened but nobody talked about it, it breaks the rules of history. And all the special pleading in the world, well, God didn't want it to be known. Okay, good night, breaks the rules of history, mythometer, probable myth. So I thought this was a great tool, the mythometer. But I didn't want to go through every chapter, mythometer, it gets a little like, okay, I've made my point. You get it. Some things are myths, some things aren't. But then it's just me saying it's a myth, and they can say, well, they can special plead. If I say it breaks the rules of biology, physics, and chemistry, though, people, the problem is that people don't know anything about electromagnetism or electrical engineering, and who does, then when I talk about the electric universe, they'll say you're breaking the rules of physics. And I'll say, no, not at all. I'm not breaking the rules of physics. These are the rules of electromagnetism. You have to study James Clerk Maxwell and the other people who... James Maxwell, a Scottish inventor, bookbinder turned inventor, and all the people who followed him. Oh, sorry, Michael Faraday and Maxwell who followed him. Michael Faraday was the Scottish bookbinder and inventor. And Maxwell sort of canonized or, wrote down some of what he did, because Faraday didn't write down a fucking thing. He was just an experimenter. Can you imagine that? He didn't publish papers. He just was successful in showing how things worked. Well, that's a good scientist. You don't have to publish. You don't need to be peer reviewed. Your shit just works, and it works well. So there was the mythometer, and it's snarky, and it means that you can walk around saying, "Oh, it breaks the mythometer. Oh, it breaks the mythometer. Oh, it breaks the mythometer." And it's cute and it's funny, and I knew it was a good invention, and I might throw it in there for laughs, but it ends up being clever. See, I'm up against something in myself that I say to myself that I actually have to be useful. And so my biggest concern is about cultural crash. So I have to somehow be able to write a book that tells people some factual information, some information that they didn't know, gives them some tools to aid in their critical thinking, but also somehow addresses them to the realities of an impending or really ongoing slow burning crash, which I think is about to speed up as the oil majors are getting less and less and less out of the fields. So, that's my task, it's a hard task. I can't just write a funny comedy book like a George Carlin brain droppings thing. I can't just be snarky about all the things that are stupid. I have to provide you with something that has some value and meaning, or I don't feel like I'm doing my job. And I know it's a self-assigned job, but that's the one I have. So I did come up with some ideas. And I like them because I think that they'll be useful, but they'll also lead... I think that they'll aid in critical thinking, but they'll also lead to people being able to get beyond just the cleverness of it. I wrote official stories, but my favorite chapters now that I think about are the vaccine, the HIV, I should say, the chapter 9, the outer space chapter, because I think that there's so much work that's happening that's useful and interesting to people in the realm of astronomy if they get into plasma physics. I guess I don't think as much about the CIA, JFK, 9/11 chapters. Those are very good chapters, but I don't think much about them as much because there's nothing you can do about it. It's good to know that. You sort of lose your cultural virginity or your political virginity. And then you begin to understand, like, okay, it's all a big lie. But if you think that you have to fight the bad guys at that level, then you'll always lose. If you become a journalist who tries to fight the CIA and the press, you've got no chance. You can't fight these international espionage things. It doesn't matter how much you reveal. They own the document shredding services. They own the, what do you want to call it? The something of information, the distribution of information. So you can't do much about it. With Big Bangs not being sure stuff, with electric universe stuff, you can maybe start to figure out that we as a culture, even locally, could invest in local energy systems. With HIV and vaccination, you could figure out, like, okay, they're definitely lying to us. I'm not exactly sure how, so better stay away from those creeps. With Darwinism, I guess you just realize that Darwinists really should be paying attention to the electric universe concepts rather than, I don't know, than just big dumb accidents make everything. Once you get into the electric universe stuff, things make a lot more sense. But I was getting somewhere with the book. I'm sorry, I know, it sounds like I'm getting nowhere. I was getting somewhere with the book, and I finally got to somewhere that I wanted to. That's what I'll talk about in this next half hour. And the concept was normalcy. I mean, I had the idea of the mythometer, that something might be a myth, but that means that you have to define what myth is, and I've done that. And, myth is a story that's not historically true, but has great psychological value, or that it's a version of an historical event that no longer resembles that event, has been put into terms that sort of excite us, that help us remember it. I mean, if I said, there was a great plasma storm in 1859, and I didn't know what 1859 was, and we didn't have calendars, and we didn't have clocks, and we didn't have books, you'd say, what's 1859? But if I said the sky god, the sun god, came and fought a battle in the heavens with the god of the winds, 5 generations ago. It said, the sun god fought with the god of the winds 5 generations ago in the sky. What did it look like? It looked like giant men crossing the sky. It looked like rivers of fire and light against the blackest background. Well, that happened in 1859. It was called the Carrington event, but it was a plasma event. And I can say that because you can go read articles about it, and you can read testimonials about how bright it was at midnight all over the northern hemisphere, all over the world in the northern hemisphere. Or maybe all over the world. Sorry, I don't know, it was southern too, but it probably was. Normalcy is the idea. It's such a simple word. It's a word that we've talked about, other people have talked about, but that's the word that I want to talk about in the next half hour of the show. The problem, the ideas around normal, and the strengths of normalcy, and how difficult it is to challenge or question normal. And so I guess we'll define normal a little bit, figure out how normal gets made, and figure out why some of us wake up to say, I guess we're abnormal because it doesn't seem normal to us. At least it doesn't seem sane. This is Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV. Thanks for that long introduction, Liam. You're welcome, Liam. You're welcome, other Liam. Hold on. We're coming right back. Bottom of the first hour. You can support this show and this show and this show by buying Fish Stories on CreateSpace and Amazon.com. 10 chapters, 11 topics. CIA, JFK, vaccination. 9/11, HIV. Shakespeare, not Shakespeare. Shakespeare who didn't write Shakespeare. Darwin, plate tectonics, not a science. Big Bang, not a science. And an 11th chapter called How Life Works, My Rough Draft. In other words, I pitch to you the concept of how things probably unroll in an electromagnetic universe. I think my little version of it is being modeled truer and truer as we understand more about electricity and space, the nature of water, and related topics. You can also put $5 or $10 or $20 into the PayPal kitty, whatever moves you. You can watch my videos on my YouTube channel, Liam Scheff, YouTube/ or / Liam Scheff. Please don't slash. I had a thought. I need some water. My throat's a little verklempt, a little dry. What was my thought? Oh yeah, I didn't finish that story. So I was really arguing with this, Muslim friendish acquaintance person of mine. I was really fighting. And I was not enjoying it at that point because she wouldn't budge logically. I said, you do understand that you're critical of every other religion on earth that has any significance. You know that they're not true. You're logical, and you know that problems exist with vaccination and other medical sciences. You're able to think critically about things other people accept blindly, but you won't think about the thing that your parents told you. It's a very important question. Can you break up with your parents' ideas? She couldn't. We'll see what happens down the line. It's fine. She can think whatever she wants. But I said, the idea that there's a creator of the universe who's worried about your hairstyle is narcissistic, not just silly. it's intensely narcissistic. It's as narcissistic as a small child thinking that they're the reason their parents split up. And I don't mean to say that small children are evil or that narcissism is evil. I mean that it's an undisciplined, uninformed way of thinking about the world. It is natural. It's a natural habit to fall into. That's what selfishness is, by the way. It's narcissism, which doesn't just mean to say that it's evil selfishness. I mean, it can be self-blaming selfishness, but all children are narcissistic. They all think that they're the center of the universe. And that's the conversation I had with her. We're coming back to the show. Hold on. And welcome back to the second half hour of the Liam Scheff Show. We're talking about the next book that I'm writing and talking about the way that I write and how I think, what has to go into a book of mine so that I'm happy with it. I've covered the idea that it has to be useful to people, that it has to point to upcoming problems. It has to offer some tools for critical thinking, for analysis, and it has to, I think, put the reader in the mind of going in the right direction to survive a coming calamity. Or one that's already been foisted upon the public. So official stories did that in a number of ways. It certainly gave you some critical thinking skills to talk about how things are constructed in the model of an official story, a magic bullet that everything is blamed on and a lone gunman who's to blame, rather than the complex nature of society, of business, of history, of government, which is always, to some degree conspiratorial because doors close and we don't get to see what goes on behind them. That's a conspiracy. Doesn't have to be malicious. It doesn't not have to be malicious. But I didn't want to. I mean, I tried, sort of doing a do-over of official story, and I wanted something different. I didn't just want to use the same sort of tri-prong fork to hoist everything up and look at. I wanted something different. I wanted something new. And I did come up with something, or it came up with me, but it took a long time. And I mean, a lot of talking, a lot of trying, a lot of thinking, a lot of moving through topics and letting it go. And so there was an idea that sort of came up through working, and I can't recall the entire process, but there's an idea that things are normal. And that things are normal, it came through the idea of a myth. Why do we accept certain things? Why do we believe some things? We believe them, and this is my other going theory or idea, that we're really a tribal species. Deep down, we're tribal. What does that mean? Well, we think we're logical. We think we're modern. We think that we are civilized. And to some degree, we are modern and civilized. But only because we have oil. And only our civilization is entirely dependent on the ability to draw material out of the ground that either was born from algae or probably dripped from a planetary pass-by or cometary impact. I'll talk about that more. Hold on. Sorry. Emergency. Hold on. One second. Okay. Something was falling. Got it. Right. Oil. Right. Cometary pass by. I'll get to that. But we get our entire modern world by virtue of thinking that, by virtue of ignoring the fact that everything that we do relates to petroleum. Everything is petrol. Everything is petrol and nothing is not. If we didn't have petroleum, we would be living in the 17th century, 18th century, early 19th century. We'd have coal, but there wouldn't be 7 billion of us because we wouldn't have been able to create the green revolution using petroleum again, natural gas, petroleum again, to grow copious amounts of inbred monocropped food. So there wouldn't be so many of us, and I don't know that we would feel such a need to be all electronically connected through, wireless and wired systems all over the world. We might just be living in our towns and taking the train to cities and reading and going to readings and performances and, living in either Dickensian squalor or Jane Austen's England. You take your pick. Of course, there are many other ways to live between wealth and squalor, but those are the choices, wealth and squalor. So what? So why do we believe what we believe? Because things become normal. And it was normal for a period of time in Dickens' time, a lot of things were normal. Children going to work was normal. It was protested. Children going to work at very, very young ages in very dangerous jobs, getting sick and dying, was normal. It was protested, but it was normal. So some people actually stood up for that status quo. Status quo, I think, which means as it goes, or status quid quo, state in which. The state. Status quo. Okay. So status quo, the state in which things are currently occurring. In other words, it is as they are, so it is as they must be. Or, as I said in a recent video, quoting Voltaire's Candide, we live in the best of all possible worlds. It was pointed out to me, and I think I knew this, but it was helpfully pointed out by somebody on the internet that Voltaire was mocking Leibniz, another philosopher, mathematician, who was always talking about how it was the best of all possible worlds in slightly different terms. And Voltaire wrote in his satirical novella Candide about a Dr. Pangloss, who was a mathematician, theologian, and idiot, who, whenever a problem would come up, would say, well, no matter, because we live in the best of all possible. Oh, you have syphilis? Oh, there's no matter. We live in the best. It couldn't be any different. We live in the best of all possible. Oh, everybody in Portugal died in an earthquake. Well, we live in the best of all possible. Oh, we've been taken over by pirates and dumped on the night. Oh, well. World couldn't, that's the way it is. You wouldn't want to live at any other time. It really is the best of all possible worlds, the way we live now. That's status quo think. It's normal. There is a logical concept, I think, the normalcy bias. But there is the idea that what we're grown up with, what we grow up with, and what our parents tell us that we grow up with, and our parents' idea in the home, is normal. People have to break up with their parents, first of all, in order to get beyond cultural expectations. So if you meet somebody and they're entirely close with their parents and they've never had any disputes or disagreements, unless their parents were remarkable outside the bubble thinkers, coloring outside the line thinkers, they themselves, if their parents were sort of conventional in some way, conventionally social, conventionally religious, conventionally political, and the children get along with them very, very well and have never really argued, it's unlikely that the children will have developed, that sort of culture in themselves, like almost culturing a particular strain of thinking, like a bacterium, but not a harmful one, that says we can't trust everything our parents tell us. Not that we should hate our parents, but we can't trust everything they tell us. They themselves were told things. But if you never break up with your parents, it's very difficult to be an individual in this society. And people would say, I'm trying to disrupt the family. Well, the family itself is an idea that is fairly recent in the way that we think about it. So the new normal is that, the family is inviolable and nothing can come between the family. Well, history has very different ideas about family. People lived in extended groups. Men were brutal through most of history, and women were objects. Children were no better than objects. And the only children who had any value were firstborn male heirs, and if they died, secondborn male heirs. And then the women, of course, who were taken from some other family of hopeful, reasonable things to trade that made that relationship seem reasonable to the adults in charge. So the idea that the family is sacred, we do everything for family, I guess so. Really, what you're talking about, though, is we do everything for tribe. And family is what tribe has gotten whittled down to. Tribe used to be 100, 150 people, maybe 200, maybe 400. Well, that'd be more of a large, extended tribe. But still, a small clan, which would be mostly bloodlines, and then a tribe, which would be a lot of mixed lines, would be a group of people who came up together and lived together, either worked or farmed or scavenged and found food together. In any case, they did everything together. And the tribe was your family. The tribe was your home. You could then reason that this sort of human habit of falling into cultish thinking is actually quite natural. If not healthy, it's quite natural. The human habit towards fundamentalisms is also, unfortunately, quite natural. It's the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to do is to believe things that aren't true because everybody wants a sacred story that belongs to them and their little group. You don't have to involve other people. It's just our little story. Then it becomes challenged by some, wiseacre standing over to the left going, well, that doesn't seem fucking reasonable at all. And you go, well, don't be in our group anymore. Well, you say, I am in your group. I'm your cousin. I'm the child of your, mother's sister, so you can't just throw me out. So then there's bad blood in the group because somebody doesn't believe in your God anymore. This is the state that we found ourselves in the modern world. The tribe has been disrupted by logic all over the place, also by the ease of moving around large distances. So that the normal confines and boundaries of a tribe, of what made normal for, either tens or hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years, the confines of that normal traveling band, that tribe of people, no longer exists in a visible way. And so we must recreate tribe along intellectual, psychological, and really media-driven lines of belief. So Christians will tend to adhere and anneal themselves with other Christians in a room full of strangers. I should say, people who guard their Christianity as though it were an actual historical truth rather than a rather quaint series of beliefs about something from which they try to take good lessons. Most Christians probably try to just take good lessons from this thing they were raised with, because they don't quite have the courage to totally dispense with normal. Mommy and Daddy were, the people who introduced this to them, or them to it. And so, in order not to wildly upset Mommy and Daddy, who either are still alive or whom the memory of is still very important, they don't just dispense with it entirely. So you can see what it takes to be a very clear-thinking person in this world. And it's not pretty. It takes somebody who's been pushed so far to the outside that they no longer relate to the inside. They no longer consider the inside of the culture their home. And you know that that's true. You can look around, look at the people who've made huge impacts on society. They are nearly all outsiders. I don't mean impacts like Paris Hilton giving a BJ and a blowjob on a video. I mean the Beatles, or Einstein, for what it's worth, was an outsider in his way. Steve Jobs, an outsider in his way. Go through the list of inventors. People who had to break up Isaac Newton, very much an outsider in his way, very much ridiculed in his own time for many things. Even though he was successful, he was very much ridiculed. Believed in a lot of things he wasn't supposed to believe in. Believed in things that scientists today still don't believe in. But we know that people who are willing to dispense with cultural norms they're either crazy because they dispense with too many norms of polite conduct, or they're superstars. And you can look at whatever you think of him. You can look at a Russell Brand as somebody who treads both lines. He does dispense with, in his act at least, and apparently in some of his public behavior, does dispense with many rules of normal comportment. Well, we always like comedians to do this, to reflect to us what we're not able to do ourselves. So that's his job. His job is to upset us a little bit so we laugh. But he also intellectually comes at things very much from the outside. And he is an intellectual, and he does think critically, and he is a good thinker for having used so many drugs. And he remains, pretty interesting. And it would be interesting to see what happened if he actually started doing some real research about history in the world. Instead of just being flamboyantly interesting, it could actually be, groundedly interesting. You can see it in John Lennon. John Lennon was definitely an outsider. His father left. He was a merchant seaman. His mother was killed just about in front of him when he was getting to know her again as a teenager by an off-duty drunken police officer. You can't build a better system of alienating somebody from all authority than John Lennon's childhood. Very difficult to do. And so he came at the world wanting to own it, conquer it, and despise it all at the same time. And that's why the Beatles, for him, probably once, he was the guy who burnt out and quit them. He's the guy who made, Paul McCartney's desire to be sort of a professional group seem ridiculous. He was the raucous part of the rock and roll part of that band. But he was also, if not a literary genius, there were great touches of genius about him, and boy could he sing, and boy could he play, and boy could he write a song. And his magnetic, off-kilter energy really captured the imagination of billions of people over the last 1980, 90, 30-something years since his death, and of course the 20-something years of his fame. or 19 or 20 years of his fame, you have to admit that he really captured the imagination. He was an outsider. Gandhi was an outsider. He, of course, came from a group of people who were not considered to be... And I'm not saying John Lennon was a hero or a saint. He was violent, he was abusive, he was a drug addict. He was an awful, awful, awful father to his son Julian, and he was an awful husband to his wife Cynthia, and I don't know what the second relationship was about, and he seems to have been a severely broken human being. Nevertheless, he influenced a lot of people to think about things that they might not have thought about why we go to war, about what war is about what peace would be about. He asked them to think these things because he was a strong outsider. Paul McCartney wasn't such an outsider. He had a much more middle class, his mother died when he was young, and there's a lot of sadness in Paul McCartney's life. Still, even as an adult. But he was certainly a more balanced person, which made him sort of a joke in the Beatles for some reason. I don't know why it would be, because he was a genius. Paul McCartney is a genius. I don't mean he's a lyrical genius, but he's a songwriting fucking genius. He is. Go look up his catalog. Try not to hum 80% of what he's written. Hear it once, try not to hum it all day long. Try. He's a genius. I don't care what anybody says, he's a genius. Okay, so you look at the world of people who really impacted. That's music. And then you can go to the sciences. And you'll realize that anybody who's really made a wildly significant contribution came to it from the outside. Very few people came from inside the university system and said, I have it. We've been doing it all wrong. You even know that by saying that you can't come from the inside the university system. Oh, you've been doing it all wrong. Here's how to do it. Of course you have to fight. That's where that expression comes from. First they'll mock you, then they'll abuse you, and then finally you'll be accepted, or whatever it is. But really it doesn't work that way. It's first they'll mock you, then they'll continue to mock you, then they'll mock you, then they'll ridicule you, then they'll create some scandal in your name, and then they'll forget about you, and then you'll try to come back, and they'll mock you some more. Because the sciences no longer work, and they don't allow eminent outsiders. The system has become too contained and controlled. You're listening to the Liam Scheff Show, and I'm talking about what normal is and why it takes an abnormal person to make changes in this world. Of course, the problem with being abnormal is you might lack social skills. You might be a violent drunkard like John Lennon, a violent drug addict. All rock and rollers, for the most part, are outsiders. You don't grow up and just addict yourself to practicing the guitar. I don't mean new rock. I don't mean anything since 1975 or 6. But in that short heyday of rock and roll, where Eric Clapton was God and so on and so forth, you don't get into this because you did really, really, really well in school and all you wanted to be was an accountant. You get into it because you don't believe in the system. There's something else calling to you. The muses are ripping through your soul. You're an artist, which means that you don't believe all the, left brain stuff? You don't, sorry if I get the right brain stuff, I don't know. You don't believe all the sort of clinical aspects of life. You don't believe the normal. Your sexual desires are probably too strong to be claimed by any single relationship. Your passions grow too large to be contained by simple words, so you have to write them into music and sing them and scream them. That's the plight of the musician. That's why they're all crazy. Their nervous systems are on fire. And we wouldn't want it any other way. They give us this great relief in the world. They show their wounds so that we can feel our own wounds more compassionately. Joni Mitchell's wounds become all of our wounds when we listen to her music. Absolutely. Hero of mine. David Bowie's strangeness becomes all of our strangeness, and we accept it when we see him saying, what are we going to do? This is how strange I am. I'm wearing a white suit built for a woman's waist, and I've got long red hair in the back and one blue eye and one green eye, and that's what I'm going to sing about. So, normal doesn't really cut it when you're trying to make changes in the world. But of course, we also like abnormal people to be good at business, because everything in America is reliant on business. And maybe this is the other most important thing. Oh, I didn't finish Gandhi. Gandhi was very abnormal, and he remained abnormal through his whole life. He was a fucking weird dude. He made himself practice brahmacharya. He wouldn't have sex with his wife, and he slept with his young nieces in the nude to test himself against getting an erection. You can look that up. He really did, and it's disturbing. You're not, why would you do that? Why don't you sleep with your wife, or at least somebody, who wants to sleep with you that way? But no. He was a weird guy, and he was addicted to his version of Hinduism. He read the Bhagavad Gita every day, and he needed to think that he was walking in this particular spiritual path. But, everything positive becomes negative in excess. Everything negative becomes positive in excess. Everything yin becomes yang in excess. And his spirituality became sensuality in excess. And that's the way it is. I never trust really fundamentalist people. I don't trust most religious people. I don't believe most of what they say. And if people start a conversation by saying Jesus saves, I think, what are you hiding? Why can't you just walk into a room and just be the person that you are? Why do you have to have this protecting shield around you, whatever the religion is, whether it's science or religion? What is wrong with just you being you? Well, there's plenty. Our society says there's a lot that's wrong with us, just us being us. And so everybody wants to be normal. They don't want to be told they're abnormal. So everybody tries to fit in. I'm going to be normal. I'm going to hold a job. I'm going to pay my taxes. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to get another car. I'm going to do car garage. My kid wants fish. I'm going to get fish. He wants cereal. I'm going to give him cereal. I don't want to be abnormal. I don't want to not give my kid sugar cereal. All the other kids have sugar cereal. I don't want to be abnormal. I'm not going to worry about GMOs. People tell me that if you worry about GMOs, you're abnormal. You don't want to be abnormal. And they get you coming and going with this because you don't want to stick out, because we're tribal. We're tribal. We are tribal, and if we are tribal, that means that we can be ostracized. It means that somewhere inside we know that it's not good enough to truly be ourselves. We also have to conform to the rules of the pack. I promise to do my best, to do my duty to God and my country, to help other people, and to obey the laws of the pack, the Boy Scout pledge. They get this with this very young. I don't want to be abnormal. I don't want to stick out. I don't want to be abnormal. Those of us whose heroes were David Bowie and the Beatles and Mick Jagger and Joni Mitchell and, Thor Heyerdahl, people who really took chances. People who said, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Sorry, I don't believe you. I'm going to try something else. I suppose we're the abnormal ones without being, any kind of threat to anybody. We just don't believe. I don't believe all this shit. I don't believe all these stories. And I think that there might be a better way of doing it. So, only the abnormal ones have the chance of making a large impact in shifting the way that things go. But that is totally constrained. So before you get very excited about being abnormal and saying, yay, we'll change the world. No. That is entirely constrained by a more important factor. And that is, what is the currency of your tribe? What keeps things going in an exchange? What feeds people in your tribe? What feeds people in our tribe? Money, of course, because we don't think about food. We just think about going in our tiny metal boxes and buying things that come in little plastic cases and boxes, and then eating that, as though that were what nature was designed to do. As though that's what we did for a long time. Money, corporate, sales, items, things in boxes. We have to be able to sell things. If we're not able to sell things, then we're abnormal. I mean, listen, I sell a book. I'm very normal I have a product to sell. That makes me much more normal than if I were just walking around giving you these messages standing on a street corner. I mean, that's my plea to normality. Here, I'm normal. I have to fix my teeth. I've got to fix my shoulder. I've got to buy shoes. I've got to cut my thinning hair. I need to do all kinds of things. I need to have pants that fit. I need a new pair of shoes because the pair I've walked through the last one. I've got a hole in the bottom like I have a hole in my tooth. I need these things, so I have to have something to sell, so I have a book. Also, I like writing. I like people reading the stuff that I write, so I guess I'm normal. I fit in that way. I mean, we all want to try to be a little bit normal even in our abnormality and our unusualness. But if we don't have something to sell, we can't fit in at all. And you can see the limitation on that. If the only way you can influence a society is by packaging and selling something, you have to ask yourself if the only things of value can be packaged and sold. You know you're in trouble when you start thinking about things like air and water. And that's the society that we live in. And that's why it's so bloody fucking impossible to make any changes in this world. Because the model that we live in is that everybody's supposed to be normal, or they'll be teased, or humiliated, or something. You're supposed to believe that the system of lies that you grew up with, that the system of fairy tales that your parents were taught about government and wars and how things work, that the myths of science, Big Bang and vaccination and HIVology, all these things that have so many holes in them, if they were ships, they would have sunk a long time ago. But because they're religions, they can keep going on with belief patches holding them up, pumping the bilge all the time. Because we have to sell something in order to participate in society and be considered a player in the gladiatorial ring of the American West, the great wild Wall Street West, you can see that very little can get done if you're opposing a going concern. Let's say that you decide to oppose vaccination because you consider the products in vaccines to be very dangerous. Well, the market has already built its supply chain for vaccines. It's totally reliant on the oil infrastructure to carry to bring the things on trucks that go thousands and thousands of miles, to fund and run the factories that make the things. I mean, you really have to be aware of what you're up against. You don't have a snowball's chance in hell or in Arizona of stopping an entire industrial production line from shutting down because you have a complaint about an ingredient. The only thing you could do is sell an ingredient that would compete in the market, like some kind of shot that you said prevented illness but wasn't dangerous. Like the anti-vaccine shot. So you could give people vitamin shots and say that they prevented illness and this was better than a vaccine. Now I see a lot of people in the anti-vaccine going, damn it, you're right, we should sell something. Well, that's America. Ain't that America? Home of the free. So sorry, Sir John Mellencamp, it just popped out. So we're not allowed to contradict something unless we have something else to sell. It's no longer okay just to be abnormal, left of center, right of center. It's no longer okay to just be not exactly the cookie cutter model of bullshit that we were told in Boy Scouts, which was a bunch of horse shit anyway. It's not okay just to be a little left of center, to learn to play the guitar all day long. It's not okay just to go out and tell people to grow food and do permaculture, because I don't have a product to sell. If I had a permaculture product to sell, I guess, and if I could get a little ad time on late night TV going, hey, you want to grow food? You can grow 20 gallons of food. Here's a gallon. Oh, no mess, no fuss. Grow food in your house. It's the foodgrower.com. But if you don't have that, in America, you're not even allowed to participate in a conversation. So the anti-vaccine folks really have no chance at all, because they can't compete in the marketplace. Because in order to make a change, you have to go along with what's normal, and what's normal is what's been passed down. And what's passing down now is we're coming up to the top of the hour. We're going to start hour 2 with a set of topics that I'll think about. I'll take a little pause in between, listening to the Liam Scheff Show. Remember, you can support this and this show, and remember, you can support this show by buying a book. The books are on Kindle and on paperback at Amazon.com and CreateSpace. I've got a number of books. I've got a funny play. I've got a novella about love. Thinking about writing a sequel. Not that anybody was demanding it, but people liked it. People who read it liked it, and I liked writing it, so maybe I'll write a sequel. You can buy Official Stories on Kindle for about $4. It is 10 topics, 11 chapters that will unravel a lot of the myths that you've been told that you grew up with. I'm writing the sequel now. I'm writing about how we contend with normalcy and the problem of the embedded normalcy of our world, embedded as it is in the culture of monetary exchange that we live with. Because we live with a particular culture and unit of monetary exchange, because that rules our lives, from the water that we drink to how we get around all day long, we really have no chance at all of changing the world, even in the sciences, which are owned by the pharmaceutical petrochemical companies. It's not just hard to make a change. It's what you're asking them is to stop trading. You're just asking them to go out of business and to hand it over to you, who has no business model to offer. You see, you have nothing to sell. And so America doesn't recognize you as having value. And believe it or not, it really is that simple. Because if you could sell something and put it on the market, that would be the anti-vaccine vaccine. Something that would prevent childhood illness. I mean, it could be as simple as vitamin B and selenium shots. But people somehow want this ritual. They want to think that this would work. If you could mask vitamin C in something and not call it vitamin C and charge much more for it, you could use that in hospitals. But as it goes, you can't, because you can't charge more for it. It's already, too cheap as it is. It's not, you can't patent it. It's done. It's in the public domain. What are you going to do? Anyway, we'll see you in the next hour. I will talk about whatever I think about. I'm going to take a break between these little hours. I'm going to go get some water, and I will be back. See you then. Hi, and welcome to the second half of the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio. I guess I'm going to complain. I received first a comment and then a follow-up, message, email from somebody I'll call Cunty Cunterfuck. No, hold on. I hope, Mister, I hope you get raped by a pack of zebras. Hold on, let me think. I don't know his name. I'm going to say his name was... Oh, of course, Douchey Douchestein. So Douchey writes a comment beneath a video, and he says, and it's not about the video. It's not about the. He's not writing about the video that he's watching. He's just commenting on a video, and he says this guy seems to be wrong about some things about the sun, and taking credit for mostly he's just stealing Ben Davidson stuff from suspicious observers. Well, I wrote him, and I said, no, actually, this guy is reading your note, and I just became aware of Ben Davidson. I've been writing about Electric Universe since 2008, maybe 2007, which doesn't make me the first guy on the block, but I'm not you, not the last guy on the block. So then he wrote me, and he sort of said, well, I should have looked you up. I'm sorry I was so rude. Okay, good start. But you seem like arrogant and preachy. I thought, well, good start, bad ending, because I hadn't heard that You said in the video that the sun's corona spins faster than the sun's photosphere. I thought, well, wouldn't you rather just look that up before calling me names online? You cunt. Let's see if with a simple search I can find any evidence. I'm just saying, in a book called Encyclopedia of the Solar System, edited by Paul Weisman and Lucy Ann McFadden. Large-scale motions, the rotation of the photosphere has been determined from daily maps of Doppler velocities, principally at the Mount Wilson Observatory, or from the displacements of individual features such as sunspots or magnetic field patches. So this is visible accounting for the rotation of the surface of the sun. Although different methods yield slightly different results, the general features persist. The visible photosphere rotates from east to west, but not as a rigid body would. Interesting. Instead, the equator rotates faster than higher latitudes. And the equator rotates faster than the sun at higher latitudes. So the poles rotate more slowly, which is strange. You'd expect the equator, which is so much larger, to rotate much more. Well, I mean, if anything's going to lag, it's not going to be the poles, right? No, it doesn't work that way. So it's being driven like a motor around the equator. So what has more contact there? As Figure 11 shows, the corona tends to rotate more rigidly than the photosphere. Now that doesn't mean it rotates faster, but it rotates more as a uniform body. Now, hold on. At distances, the corona rotates differentially with a period of higher latitudes greater than the. Moreover, the corona. I'll just read it all to you. and we'll have to interpret it after. It's a little wonky. As figure 11 shows, the corona whose brightness is dominated by coronal streamers tends to rotate more rigidly than the photosphere, but the details are complicated. A recent analysis of white light images shows that the latitudes less than 40 degrees and at distances from disk center less than 1.5 solar radii, the corona rotates differentially with a sidereal period of 26 days. So the corona rotates with a period, the corona rotates around the sun at 26 days. And the equator rotates at 25 days relative to distant stars, and the rest of the the equator rotates in 25 days. The rest of the photosphere, the rest of the sun, rotates in 34 days. What do you think of that? The sun has has many different periods of rotation by observation. The corona then tends to rotate in 26 days, which is faster than most of the sun, but not than the equator. Or perhaps it's equal to the equator. You have to give a little plus or minus for their observations. Don't know. At higher latitudes and greater heights, the sidereal period is nearly constant, 34 days. Moreover, the corona decelerates at all latitudes during the rise of the sunspot cycle and accelerates after solar maximum. So let me read that again. A recent analysis of white light, that's white light, that's what it sounds like, images, shows that at latitudes less than 40 degrees, so less than 40 degrees on the sun, at distances from the disk center less than 1.5 solar radii, so within a period, within a distance of 1.5 radiuses of the sun, the corona rotates differentially. It rotates not all as one, with a period of 26 days. Now, I have to look up the word sidereal. Sidereal. With respect to the distant stars. So rotates with respect to the distant stars in 26 days. At higher latitudes and at greater heights, the sidereal period is nearly constant in 34 days. So at further away, the corona rotates more slowly than it does more closely. So what do we get out of that? That the corona rotates faster in some places than the surface of the sun, and equal in some places than the surface of the sun, and the surface of the sun rotates faster in some places than the rest of the surface of the sun, which is to say it's very complicated. So point for the other guy asking a question, point for me for answering it. But don't come on screaming and yelling and calling names. I mean, if you want to have a question and point out a question, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But don't be a cunty person who I hope gets raped by a pack of zebras. Don't be that person. Be easygoing about it. Say, hey, find me a source for this. Okay, here. So does this corona rotate faster? Does it have a faster period? That's what they call it. I know, a period, faster period than the surface of the sun. In some places, yes. So let me find another. And in some places, maybe not, or maybe the same. Let me find, here we go. North-south asymmetry in solar coronal rotation. Radio images estimate equatorial rotation period less than those estimated by rotators of the chromosphere, and corona is discussed temporarily. The region of higher latitude, the corona is much faster. All right, let's see what we have here. Oh, give me a break. Sorry. Hold on. The thing doesn't want to open for me. Don't make me pay for this article. I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. Hold on. Rotates much. The study showed that the equatorial parts of the corona rotate slightly faster than that of the photosphere and the chromosphere. Okay, win for me. Okay, wrong, zebra raper, having been raped by zebras guy who wrote me. The study shows that equatorial parts, again, of the corona rotate slightly faster than the photosphere. So point for me. The region of higher latitudes in the corona rotate much faster than the corresponding regions of the lower solar atmosphere. Okay, point for me. I win. So I didn't go in the video just being an a-hole. I had read this stuff before I went to the video. And when I make a video, I try to simplify it. I don't have a script. I say it a couple of times. I say some things that I think I want to say, and then I go. You can tell I don't have a script because I can easily dislocate myself from the central theme of the thing, and then I have to come back. So I'm not scripted. What I have are some ideas that I want to transfer. And the reason I make these videos is because people watch videos and they don't read books. And I'm trying to give information to people. I'm not claiming to be the absolute font and source of all information, but I am the transceiver of the information. I'm receiving it and then transmitting it. I don't footnote them because it's a video on YouTube, you fucking idiot. That's why I don't footnote them. It's a video on YouTube. When I want to write a footnoted article, I'll do so. This is for you to take the information and then go look it up. That's what it's for. I'm trying to prompt critical thinking in your head. That's why I pointed out that the sun was hotter in the corona, which you didn't dispute, idiot, and that the corona rotates a little bit faster than the top of the surface of the sun. The outside of the sun, far outside of the sun, is hotter and rotates faster, which should indicate to you, idiot, who missed the point, that's the point I'm making, that the sun is heated exteriorly, not from the interior. It rotates faster at the exterior, and it's heated, and it's hotter. It's much hotter in the exterior, not the surface. I mean, far away from the sun, a solar radii away, thousands of miles away from the sun, tens of thousands of miles away from the sun. It's hotter than it is on the surface of the sun, and it rotates faster. That means that that's the area that's rotating. And if you want to know who did a great job of pulling together problems with the electric models of the sun, there's a guy named Bob Johnson, or Robert Johnson. No, not the guy who sold his soul to play guitar. Well, maybe he did, I don't know. But this is a different Robert Johnson, and he gave a talk at an EU conference. And I paid very close attention because I wonder what their models are. You know, I wonder how they're negotiating their models. And the best thing about his EU talk was that it actually challenged the EU, not European Union, but the electric universe, on its own modeling. It said, okay, very good. We accept that the sun is electric. Now improve. Now improve. And I was very impressed by them, by the EU founders, you know, Dave Talbot, Walt Thornhill, that they invited a guy to talk who was going to take them to task, not cruelly, not brutally, and not with name-calling, but with details. Like, hey, okay, you know, this is what we're coming up with here, this is what we're coming up with here, and this is what we're coming up with here, and we don't really have a perfect model yet, so let's not claim that we do, but it's clearly electrical, it's clearly hotter in the corona, it spins faster in the corona. We can either talk about it as being, you know, a current winding down around the sun, and if that's the case, here's what we would expect to see, and do we see it? And, you know, it's just an open question. So to have some little cunt fucking douche so-and-so write and be shitty on my pages is like, well, dude, there is no working model of the sun. We're doing our best. Everybody's guessing. And I deeply respect the works of Walt Thornhill. I constantly reference to the point that I get accused of being an EU fanatic by other people. So fuck off. Yay! Anyway, back to the show. Just thought I would get to the mailbag. There it was. Bag of men. It's a mailbag. We're not really allowed to think about most things. So if all of that was out of totally, you know, hyperspeed left field, go back a couple of shows and listen to the one on the electrical models of the sun, where I'm parsing through and trying to understand what could be working on the sun if we have an electrical current flow and where it's heated, where, you know, what's known and what can then be hypothesized reasonably. It occurred to me, though, we talked in the last hour about, well, how we're allowed to think. And in this, I want to continue that idea. I have a thought I'd like to expand in the remainder of the show, or at least part of it. And that is that people who write me are... No, I already did that. You know, I get so many nice letters. I get people saying the nicest things, and I always shrug my shoulders. I'm like, yeah, well, thank you. They made me change my... No, don't worry about it. Thank you. And I get the one really shitty letter, and I spend 10 minutes on it. That's the way critical people are, right? I get people tell me that, oh, I love you, change it. Okay. Hey, good, grow some food. That's all I ever say. Good job, grow some food. I don't know, because praise just is nice. It's nice, and I appreciate that people are appreciating, and I really appreciate it when friends write me and they say, hey, I heard about your hurt shoulder, bad teeth, thinning, or hurt teeth, thinning hair, all this stuff. Try this. You know, squeeze some gecko juice onto your head and turn left on Sunday, and that should fix your shoulder. And don't get raped by zebras, and that should make your hair grow back. And I thank you for that advice. I do. I thank you when I appreciate it when people write me and they say, you know, it's not too pushy, but they say nice things like, hey, try this happened to my uncle, or try this, or I had this experience. I appreciate it. I do. So that goes out too. And I appreciate everybody. And there are people, I don't tend to name them, but people put in $5 and $10 from time to time in the PayPal. And I'm always like beyond touched. I'm like, wow, I exist. I really appreciate that. I actually exist. I'm not just talking into empty space. Some of what I do actually reaches people. The research that I do is actually somewhat useful to them. That's my goal, to be useful. I want this to be useful and a little bit entertaining. I also don't want to have to pay for therapy, so I just bring it here. Thank you. Ba-dum-bump. Yes, it's my self-revealing joke of the day. And to the rest of you, may 1,000 zebras make nests in you. Okay. Think about why you think what you think. Think about why you've determined that you're allowed to think about certain things. You think that you're allowed to think about anything. You don't need permission. You're a libertarian. You don't need permission. You'll do it all on your own. I'd like to point out something about libertarianism. It totally depends on a system called Wall Street. And that depends on a system called Third World and poor people to do work so that libertarians can go to conferences and talk about how great it is to be libertarian. Now, the rest of us have to live in worlds where we know that we're all dependent on each other. Libertarians are dependent on no one but the invisible hand of the market. Yes, it's that invisible hand that enslaves all the people that you don't see. Well, they have to do something. They might as well do something so that I can have food and an iPod, so that I can talk about how great it is to be free. I don't have great respect for libertarianism. A little dose is all you need. People who take it too seriously end up forgetting that Thomas Jefferson was a slaveholder and quote him only in the things that they want him to say. Yeah, okay. So we know how that goes. Republicans know that we live in a slave world, and they just say, oh, it's a slave world, so we're going to enslave people, and, we'll try to give them some sort of wage so that they don't have to become zebra rapers or live to make bad comments on Liam's Facebook or anything like that. They'll actually be able to afford a little bit of food after they slave away all day long in the rice field or the light bulb factory or the transistor factory. Democrats think they don't live in a slave world. They think that some people want to make it a slave world, and it wouldn't be a slave world if not for those people. So Democrats and liberals tend to fight people who agree that it's pretty much a slave world. But Democrats and liberals all use iPads, iPhones, Macs, anything that they can, really, to stay in touch, stay on the web, and read the Huffington Post. So everybody's an idiot, and everybody's a hypocrite, and it's impossible not to be an idiot and a hypocrite in this society. Everybody is. Yours truly, I'm using all the machinery of the slave world. That's how I'm getting through to you. I'm using the machinery of the slave world. Sure, I paid money for it, but it didn't go to the people who made it. No, they're slaves. So we live in a slave world, and we're all hypocrites and idiots. All politics are for hypocrites and idiots, and anybody who votes is participating in a system of lunacy. So what are we allowed to think about? This is an insight that may bother you a little bit, but it's true. We need permission to think big thoughts. We're allowed to think little thoughts all day long. We walk around thinking little thoughts. Oh, that movie sucked. Oh my God, I wasted 2 hours of my life on that movie. Or, when are they going to make a really worthy sequel to Sex and the City as a TV series? Because, I don't want to see those girls again, but I don't want it to be, I want something for our adults, Or, was that really the ending to Mad Men? That was just, what the fuck was that? Or, God, damn it, God, I want to get more back in taxes. I better go to the accountant and figure out where to lie on everything and make a quick charitable foundation to something, what is that called, 1003, 103, I don't know what it's called, something 03C, in my own name, but hidden from me so that people don't know that it's me, but I'll make a contribution to myself and they'll never find out. Small thoughts. Or, it's not stealing if I eat it in the store, is it? Or, or, yes, I've been to that one. Kylie Jenner is really not that good looking before her plastic surgery. Geez, I feel tricked. Or, are David Duchovny and Jillian, I can't even finish that sentence. Or I can't believe that Chewbacca wasn't even more sad in the new Star Wars movie, and he just sort of got over his best friend of like 50 years being killed in a second. Well, okay. Small thoughts. We're allowed to think all the small thoughts we want, like Facebook sucks, or Facebook's controlling my news feed, or we can think slightly larger thoughts as long as they're approved of. Like, we all have to be very concerned about global warming. It's very important that we're all very concerned about global warming. It's imperative that we're all concerned about global warming. If we're not concerned about it, then we're bad people and we're making a terrible decision. Now, the facts speak for themselves. The data is clear. The debate is over. We can have big conversations, full of grandiose words and dramatic poses, if it's approved of. It has to be approved of by somebody. But you can't come out and make big statements about things that aren't approved of. Go ahead and try it. Go ahead. You can be pro-vaccine. You can be for more vaccines. You could even be for, free access to vaccines for the poor. You can be for more AIDS drugs for the poor. You could be for free HIV testing for people, young people at risk, black people and gay people. If you say that, then you're a good person. You can say black people, and you can't say black people. You have to say people at risk because you don't want to sound as racist as you are. So you say people at risk. We want more access to AIDS drugs and free HIV testing for people at risk. In other words, kill all the black people. I know. That's what you said. You don't know that that's what you said, but I sure do. Because I'm not a brainwashed idiot. But how do you... But it takes a while to get there, right? I mean, I was born to be a brainwashed idiot like the rest of you, like the rest of us. We're born into a system. We're born to be brainwashed. We're born to get along with the tribal council. And that's really what we do. And I think this is what people don't realize. We're really not a logical animal. We are a tribal animal. We're born to have the thoughts that are approved of. We can have small, little niggling doubts. I said niggling. Jesus. It's from a Norwegian word. It means, it's like wiggling. It's like slightly bothersome. Just take it easy, for God's sake. You can have small I'll take a different word. You can have small worrisome doubts. You can have small, tiny little doubts about almost anything. You can go to the therapist because you're not getting along with your mommy or daddy or girlfriend or boyfriend or girlfriend or sister or brother or whatever. You can go and deal with those little tiny issues in your personal life. And they're tiny. Because the real world is run by the petrochemical oligarchy. And the real world doesn't care what you think. You can protest all day long, and the real world will run over you like a pack of zebras ready to rape you. I don't know why that keeps coming back. I just assume it's never happened, and so I find it funny. I hope it's never happened. Really, that would be very unfortunate. My God, that would be so unfortunate. It's the least of all possible words I could use for that scenario. I don't know that you would survive, and if you did, I would visit you in the hospital, but I'd have to avert my eyes. I couldn't look at you in the eye after you were raped by a pack of zebras. I'm sorry. Here, have you seen this? It's Mad Men. Watch it. It's incredibly boring, and you won't be able to stop watching, although you'll have to fast forward through every scene with that stupid blonde-haired idiot actress. Every single scene. For 6 years, you just have to fast forward through every scene with that idiot, that terrible actress who cannot speak. Why was she in this show? Why was the show so boring? Why didn't the show... Mad Men could have been 1 season long. Just the story of Don Draper and his past. That's it. And all the women he screws. And then he comes out and is spit out on the other end and makes a Coca-Cola ad. I mean, really, 1 season for all that pain. It's sort of the worst show on television that I couldn't stop watching. I was just sucked into this dynamic of this guy who's... that's the mystery of life. Life's such a mystery that television presents us with mysteries, and we watch because we know life is a mystery. And so we watch a mystery hoping that we get to the mystery of life, but we don't. We just get to watch some douchebag say Om and make a Coca-Cola commercial. God, we're such suckers. Anyway, zebra raping, Mad Men, where were we? Oh yeah, we're only allowed to think about the things that we're instructed in. So they're big envelopes. They're sort of big containers, and we're allowed to think thoughts in those containers. Like, Big Bang is real. Oh, maybe there are multiple Big Bangs. Maybe it's a multiverse. Maybe there's a universe in my happening right now in my thumbnail with people living way inside. You're not allowed to say there was no Big Bang. That was invented by a priest to coincide with a previous container called Biblical Genesis. Neither are true. They're both absolute fucking bullshit. You're not allowed to say that. You're not given permission. There's no container that goes in. You're not told that it's okay to have an opinion that goes very strongly against the norm. And the norm is what's handed to us by our tribal elders. And frankly, our tribal betters. You have to really think that they think that they're better than we are. So they present us with this idea, Big Bang, and we're allowed to think, oh my gosh, I'd like to study that. Oh, maybe I can study some aspect of Big Bang and be important like the people studying Big Bang. You can't say it's not true, because then you don't fit inside the container, and you don't have cultural authority to say so. If you're a priest, you could say so. The priest class could get up and say, by the way, we're not sure Big Bang is true anymore, and we're opening the field to new ideas. And the field would be flooded with new ideas. It's not like there are no other ideas. I mean, that just struck a chord with you, I can tell. If the people in charge said, oh, yeah, HIV, we thought HIV caused AIDS, but we're going to open it to new ideas, you can imagine the field would be flooded with new ideas that were better than that one. We thought that vaccines were really, 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 really necessary and good for you, but we're having our doubts, and we're going to judiciously open the field to new ideas. Do you think that the field wouldn't be flooded with new ideas about how to provoke immunity and prevent illness without making people sick? The field would be flooded with new good ideas. The priest class could do that. The politicians and the priests. The kings and the priests. The politicians and the scientists could do it. Politicians, scientists, kings, and priests. All they have to do is say, yeah, we're going to open it to a new idea here and there. But they don't. And so they make everybody who doesn't agree with them an apostate, a heretic. It's not a lot of fun being a heretic. I mean, you don't believe anything anybody says. You walk through the world seeing all the seams and the cracks. You see where the whole thing is going to implode in no time at all. You see the disaster on the horizon. And you walk around and you still have to go to Target, and when you're bored you still look for a $5 movie to watch that you can buy that you might watch 3 times instead of going to the Red Box and renting some horrifying piece of shit that just came out and it's terrible and it's just straight to video. John Cusack, Nicolas Cage number. Whatever happened to those guys? God, such good act. I mean, Nicolas Cage was a fantastically weird actor for a long time, and John Cusack is a great actor. But I don't know. Did the roles dry up? Was he difficult to work with? I mean, what happened? Hollywood sucks. Is the only thing you can? Maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it's that Hollywood Maybe Hollywood offered for him to be Iron Man, and he said, "What? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm going to play a weapons manufacturer? Fuck you!" And that was that. It's possible. I just talked myself into that version of the story. This is the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Interest Frequency Radio. When we come back, I want to talk about more about what is normal and the containers that define what we're allowed to think and talk about. You can buy my book, Official Stories, which talks about zebra... No, none of that. Talks about the electric universe, talks about the hot corona, the super hot corona, and the super cool sun. Talks about the origin of all things as being unknown, but that electricity certainly is this place that we have to start in outer space. Talks about Darwinism not being a science. Talks about Big Bang not being a science. Talks about Shakespeare not being the author of Shakespeare. The guy who left no works of Shakespeare, had owned no books, plays, or poetry when he died, but had a thoroughly appointed will in which he dispensed with all his materials, including his dog and second best bed. Owned none of the plays of Shakespeare, was not the author of the works of Shakespeare. You'll find out that 9/11 was not something that just happened when a breeze blew too hard and made an airplane crash into a building. No, there were other reasons for that. Find out that JFK was killed for very obvious reasons once you simply examine the terrain of the geopolitical landscape of the 1950s and 60s, and many more. And all your favorite top hits on now. Sorry, that's that music thing now. On Official Stories by Liam Scheff. You can also put a couple dollars into the PayPal kitty. I'm going to be throwing a lot of money down a hole in my tooth very, very soon. So, $1 here and there is greatly appreciated. See you in a minute. And it's the Runout Groove. In the next half hour, I will be talking a little bit more about, well, what should the term be? Cowardly science? Cowardly closed-minded science? Yeah, okay. Cowardly closed-minded science. That sounds good. And maybe we'll have a time to touch the Grand Canyon. We talked about, the Sahara Desert last time, and how the mainstream seemed to date the Sahara Desert all over the place without any idea that they had to account for the contradictions that they made with each other. They don't seem to care about that. Something about that in the sciences. Once they decide that they're in charge, they're allowed to contradict themselves all day. But if you come along and you say, I got a question about the thing that you just said, they don't really care. They're not interested. You're a denier of science. They can essentially deny science all day long, but you can't say, what was that thing you said about the thing? The who's he, what's it, went into the what? Because, I think you sort of contradicted yourself. Oh, I don't know if I finished that hateful, distasteful rant about that zebra person, but he mentioned Ben Davidson. Now, Ben Davidson I only discovered in the last couple months. Whenever I discovered it, I started talking about it. And he's a guy who looks at daily space weather, solar activity, relating to the upper, outer atmosphere, and earthquakes. And I think he's a very bright guy. I gotta be honest, I don't always understand what he's saying. He talks kind of fast, and he doesn't seem to feel the need to explain what he means. He just does it every day. I probably missed the period where he was coming to terms with the stuff he was talking about. So he's always shorthanding it, like I'm supposed to know what the meaning of it, all of it is. Nevertheless, I like his climate video, and I think that he's working on an application, a computer application that should allow the prediction of larger earthquakes based on solar activity. And if that's so, you got to admit that's pretty phenomenal. So if I decided to spend a little more time, hello motorcycle, if I decided to spend and goodbye. If I had decided to spend a little more time absorbing that, I'd probably come to terms with it, or I'd agree or disagree, but I probably agree. Yeah. I think that they're doing interesting work, and a lot of people are now doing interesting work. It used to just be a couple guys inside the old Saturn, King Saturn, former godson thing, and now it's all kinds of people, and that's good. Okay, back to the show. We're going to talk about scientism and the Grand Canyon. Welcome back to the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV, Truth Frequency Radio. I've got in my hand 9 turmeric tablets. Let's see, 2 silica, and 2 of these ghastly bone-up tablets that contain something like, 1,000 billion milligrams of calf sole bone. Ugh, God. But teeth, trying to strengthen as I go in to do whatever the dentist says, really. I'll have to see what the lady dentist wants me to do. I'll hear her suggestions. I will definitely have to have a guard in my mouth, because no matter how I have willed it and wanted it, I have not been able to get my body to stop clenching at night. It's not sexual frustration, believe me. It's not... what else could it be? It might be a mind that just doesn't want to shut off, and so it just keeps going, and maybe it's trying to talk in the middle of the night. I don't know. I really don't know. But it doesn't matter, because I've been grinding and clenching my jaw since anybody ever slept with me and said you clench your jaw. So I was, I don't know when that would be. I was probably pretty young. I used to kick my feet, actually. I used to kick because my feet hurt. I have pretty flat feet, and they hurt. I walk a lot and I bike, but my feet hurt, so my feet hurt. Even if I don't walk, my feet hurt, so I might as well walk. And I stretch them all the time, and I stretch my toes back and forward, and I crack them and pull on the sides, and just keep the tendons as stretched and loose as I possibly can. Well, as I can. I'm sure I could do a little bit more. So I'll remove the possibly, in case there's room for improvement, and there is. But I stretch them often and a lot, and then I step on tennis balls or any kind of round edge thing to massage the bottom and move the tendons down there, and then I press down on my toes and sort of curl them under and put my weight on them, so I stretch the tendons on top, so on and so forth. But my feet hurt a lot, and my calves end up hurting a lot. And one of the only ways I can get them to stop hurting is I have to kick them really hard. I just keep kicking them until I'm not sure what happens. Something loosens, but I'll sometimes pound the muscle in the front of my calf with my heel, like I'm tenderizing meat, and that helps. And then I do the same thing with my calf in the back on my shin. And I do this for a while, and then bang, bang, bang. So if you ever hang out with me for a while, you'll hear whack, 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 whack. You say, what are you doing? Not what you think. Pounding my feet. I used to have this fantasy that I could take my feet apart, like an erector set or a tinker toy. That's what I was trying to think of the other day, a tinker toy. And that the muscles were like these little things that had hooks on the end, and I could unhook them and hang them up, and then sort of like massage them and stretch them and then put them back together. I used to want my feet to stop hurting so much. I used to have this fantasy about taking them. I could physically take them apart, like a construction toy or something. Right, so I've got all of these vitamins in my hand. We'll see if the tea I have cools down enough. Hold on, let's try. No, not yet. And I'm slightly froggy in the throat because, well, I don't want to make any... Okay, a friend of mine gave me this excellent juice, and I drank way too much of it at once. I could have stopped, but I didn't... Hello, motorcycle, but I didn't want to. It was so good, and I drank so much of it. And, yin things tend to cause rising coolness in the body, and you may not know what I'm talking about, but I do. And for now, that's all that matters. Okay, back to... I'll do the whole yin and yang on another show. But I like this idea that the sciences are put out these containers, and they say, well, everything that you want to talk about that's science has to fit in this container. So everything that you want to talk about with vaccines has to fit in the container called vaccines are great. We love vaccines. Everything about vaccines is wonderful. Oops, we killed a lot of people. Whoops, we have to do a lot of research about the genetic problems. It must be a genetic problem that these people are having because clearly the vaccine worked and there's no other reason to think that it didn't because clearly it did. Or else we wouldn't be having this conversation because we already have the container that says vaccines are great. Ergo sum whatever. It's a circular argument. In other words, it's not true. It's a logical fallacy. But none of those things matter when you hold all the cookies. And people in charge hold all the cookies. So HIV causes AIDS. We know that because we put it on the container. Clearly HIV causes AIDS. And I know that AIDS drugs do kill people. And I know that HIV tests are spotty. And we do have some problems with them. But really HIV causes AIDS. So if you want to do research into HIV, you couldn't talk about the problems with the tests. Not really. And you can't really talk about the problems with the drugs. You have to talk about the problems with HIV and how it's so mysterious you can't diagnose it with the test. And why the drugs don't seem to stop it because it's so dangerous. Even if you give the drugs for a week and the person was perfectly fine and they die. Clearly HIV got angry that you were trying to give it drugs. Could be no other reasonable explanation for this. Because science has containers. Science has containers, and you can't tip over the container. What's the other? Big Bang. First there was nothing which exploded. Everything has to fit in there. Well, I look in outer space, and I see all these things that don't conform to the idea that there was nothing which exploded. In fact, all these things have distinctive shapes. They're repetitive shapes, hourglass shapes, layered shapes. And guess what? When we look with certain kinds of electromagnetic telescopes, we can actually read electromagnetism in space. Well, why should that happen? Well, you got to send more money because clearly there's a lot going out there in Big Bang truality that we are not aware of, but we know Big Bang's true, so where do we go next? Yeah, science is very weak-minded, really. It's very cowardly. You have to imagine that. Cowardly, small-minded science. Closed-minded, weak-minded, small-minded science. It's small-minded. We know what we think. Jesus is coming for all of us. Jesus is coming back unless you're black or Jewish or Arab. Jesus won't forgive you if you're an Arab. It's small-minded. It's very small-minded. You know what you know. You know what you were told. You know what you paid to know. And scientists are very arrogant. Speaking of arrogance, the guy pissed me off so much. There I am, breaking my hump, trying to share some information with people. And here's what I get from some little cunt fucker on the internet. God damn it, I hope you get raped by a pack of zebras, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not stealing from fucking Ben David. I don't even know who Ben... I just learned who he was, and as soon as I found out who he was, I started posting his thing saying, hey, everybody, watch this. God damn it, why are people so lazy? Why are people on the internet so lazy? I don't like your video. You're stealing from a guy I heard about yesterday. Really? Go fuck yourself. Yeah, okay. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing something. There's just somebody who's been doing it for a minute, and they come along and they know it all. I don't claim to know it all. I'm quoting great people, and I'm inserting some of my own ideas into it. Hold it against me for being a philosopher and a researcher, I guess. But no, I didn't invent the model of the electric sun. I was amazed by it when I saw it. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's fascinating. As far as I know, Ralph Jurgens helped invent it, and so did a guy named Hannes Alfvén. But I think Alfvén really, I'm not sure he went far enough. I think to some degree he still believed in a thermonuclear model. I'm not sure. I have to look that up. But it was really Ralph Jurgens, who was he an electrical engineer? He's an American from Arizona. And he wrote a paper saying, it's an anode, and the thing winds up like this, and you'd have to have energy coming in like this, and this would explain the that was one of my silica pills. That would explain the superheated corona, because that would, where the energy would be coming in. It's not, he doesn't have to get everything right to have gotten something right, or more right than the people who said it was a nuclear bomb going off for no reason. Anyway, I just can't believe how lazy people are sometimes. Like, people come to me. Somebody came to me the other day, and she meant in all good faith, and she wanted to. She wasn't being lazy, but she came to me in all good faith, saying that she had really good proof that the swine flu, the World War I flu, was planted by the Rockefellers somehow. And I said, okay, you can send me whatever you have, but she wanted a phone call, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. You could send me whatever you have to read. And I'd be curious to see what you have. But, here's my caveat, I'm very doubtful that anybody knows what any particular thing was at the microscopic level from now, traveling backward 100 or so years to 1914. I sincerely doubt that you have any idea that that's true. There was World War I, don't forget that. There was mass starvation in Europe. There was the first use of major chemical warfare. And, of course, the treatment for disease at the time was taking bloody pus from sick people and injecting it into well people. So I don't really need you to tell me that the Rockefellers did it. I don't need to be... I get so tired of that single-point blaming. Oh, the Pope did it. Oh, the Rockefellers did it. Oh, it's all Bill Gates. These are just the opportunists who come along and sort of, pull on the levers that are really there. I mean, science is the same thing as religion. So who invented religion? I mean, who invented it? You want to blame one person for human predicament? What about the human species? I guess I resent that point of view because it makes it seem like we're all really geniuses, but somehow we got lied to by one person. We're all really good, but we got lied to by one person, so we do bad. We do bad things. We're all stupid and we do bad things because we were lied to by one person. Fuck that. We're self-responsible. As adults, we have to be self-responsible. We can apologize, we can do better, we can learn, we can open our minds. Well, at least people can. Scientists apparently can't, for the most part. Or those that can are no longer considered to be allowed to be scientists. Peter Duesberg opened his mind a little. He was shit on for years. Andy Wakefield opened his mind a little, not enough, and he was shit on for years. And these guys open their minds a little bit and they get shit on. If they open their minds too much, of course, they're not scientists anymore and they're laughed out of the profession because the profession the store is minded by cowardly, small-minded people. Cowardly, small-minded science. Closed-minded science. It's not just closed-minded. It's truly small-minded. It's not just closed, but it's small. We're in charge. We know what's what. You can't fit anything else into this container. We didn't set out the container. We inherited the container by going to grad school, inflating the professor's books for a couple of years, paying a few $100,000 for the privilege of saying that we're correct. Oh yeah, I think the tea is okay here. Oh, let's try a sip. Okay, but with pills. Hold on. Oh, okay. Hold on. 4 turmeric. Let's see what happens now. 4 at once. 4 with 1 blow. No. Hold on. Not like that. Oh my God. Although I did see a movie, I think, that could have been called 4 with 1 blow. I used to have a roommate that I called Fat Bastard, and he was into the most devious porn I ever had the misfortune of walking by as I sheltered my eyes and ran out the door. Dear Lord, the things that I saw with one eye closed before I headed out to Pico Boulevard. Okay, I'm going to do 4 more, or just going to wait a little bit? Okay, let's wait. I just did 6, so I'll wait. I swallowed 6 pills. 2 silica and 4 turmeric. And then I got 4 turmeric here and 2 bone cow balls and brain, whatever the hell they put into this calcium pill. God. Cowardly, small-minded science. They've decided a long time ago. They didn't invent it. They inherited it. Big Bang is true. Chemotherapy is true. Chemotherapy is the only way to treat cancer. We don't know anything about cancer, but we know chemotherapy is the way to treat it. That's true. And if you say anything on the outside, you're not doing science. There is an alternative to this, of course. We could do it a different way. We could say, you know, what we really need is we need permission. I mean, people are tribal, and we look to mommy and daddy for permission. So mommy and daddy could be decent to us and say, okay, we're going to hold 2 camps, or 4, or 8. But in the beginning, we're going to hold 2. We're going to hold one that is the going concern, and we're going to hold one slot open, an equal slot, open to all the other competitive ideas. And we'll bring those in, and we'll allow public discussion. So the going concern can be funded. You know, they can continue with their meaningless research projects into nowhere. And now these other competitors come in. Do you really, as I said in the first bit of this, do you really think there would be no ideas flooding the market? I mean, imagine the medical scientists, just imagine this for a second. The medical scientists open up and they put out a full-page ad in the New York Times and say, we, the chair people of Columbia Presbyterian and Cornell and Harvard, MIT, though we understand that we've done our best, we are open to input and help in solving the great riddles of, you name it, Big Bang, cosmology, astronomy, HIV, AIDS, totally, all that fabricated stuff, cancer, chemotherapy, and vaccination, immunology. We're open to new ideas. You don't actually have to submit a resume. We're simply opening journals to lightly reviewed. You don't have to conform to our standards. We're going to leave these open journals. We're just going to have a couple people on a rotating basis check your math, and then these are going to be publicly available rather than by subscription. And everybody who's trying to do good work in this field will be able to come forward and say, I'm using this, I'm not using it. We're going to have an actual experiential means of doing this. We're going to have hands-on in simple terms. And we're going to allow feedback, and may the best ideas win over time, over the next year, 2, 3, whatever. It'll never end. We're always going to leave, there's always going to be a going concern, or maybe there'll be 2 competitive going concerns at some point, and there'll be an equal amount of space to new ideas, until everybody generally agrees, like, wow, this shit's really working, and we're not having a lot of collateral damage. In fact, we're having no collateral damage, so this is a better system. Interesting point. You can make a system work, but you have to fill it with collateral damage. You have to allow a ton of shit to happen, a lot of people to die, a lot of poisoning to happen, a lot of exceptions to the rule that you say prove the rule, but really disprove the rule. And you still get to do it. You still get to say that that's science, which doesn't really make sense. It seems so simple and logical. Of course, life has very little to do with simplicity or logic. But it seems very simple and logical that we'd be able to I mean, if the sciences are really about finding the best idea, as some of the psychopaths claim, the internet psychopaths, when you're arguing them, science is finding the best idea, now shut up! We're going to find the best idea, shut up, you're not worthy. Have you gargled your Professor Seaman for 4 years? I didn't think so, but I have, so shut up! Okay. Thanks, semen gargling PhDs. Not that there's anything. But we could find better ideas. We could find better ideas if we imagine that we opened it up and we said, okay, you're not going to be punished or penalized for saying that we could perform the functions of creating an immune system better than by breaching the immune system and by injecting people with known toxins. We could do better than that. Okay, good. Open that to a field of inquiry. Nobody has to be punished. Nobody has to be sued. Nobody has to essentially have a truth and reconciliation committee, when you realize you've made a terrible mistake, so people don't have to be sued for pursuing the previous, existing paradigm. You simply say, let's open it up. Let's open it up. Let's not be cowardly, small-minded. Let's be courageous and large-minded. Let's practice largesse. Brave, brave science, right? Brave, brave science. If science were really brave, they wouldn't insist that the thing that they put on their container 100 years ago was true. It was just an idea, and it seemed okay to some degree at the time, but with all the variables that were not known in the 1800s and early 1900s, why do we cling to it as though it's true? Why do we continue to try to prove something true that's been disproven over and over again? Why don't we just simply we don't have to say it's absolutely false, but why don't we open the field to more ideas? If you did, do you really think that there would be a lack of energy flowing in to solve the problem? These people act as though, and that's what I was trying to get at. These people act as though they're the only ones who can solve the problem. Meanwhile, they've failed to solve the problem, and they've created far worse problems for everyone. Do they really think they're the only ones? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they're the only ones. And I do think they are, or they act like they are, which really means that they're afraid of being found out. I think they're afraid of being found out, don't you? You know, they're afraid of being caught. Caught, excuse me. Oh, time for more pills. Hold on. That was 2. Much easier than 4. Keep your comments to yourself. Okay, that was 2. Now, these bone things have kind of the stenchy nasal overdrive of, I'm not sure what it is. Some sort of field of rapey zebra corpses. So here goes one. Oh, God. And they're dry as a bone. So they get stuck, which is delightful. And here goes 2. Now, do you put the water in first or the pill in first? Water in first? Well, you have to lubricate the esophagus. So. All right. Stuck. Stuck behind the epiglottis. Okay. Oh, that was... Yeah. Okay. All right. All better now. Take me to my happy place. Cowardly, small-minded science. Brave, brave science. They act like they're the only ones who can fix it with their 100-year-old idea. But their 100-year-old idea is very bad, and it's got, critics clamoring to make changes. If science were truly science and not cultish religion, they would have no problem with new ideas. And the ideas wouldn't have to be peer-reviewed if they were successful, by the way. I mean, if you could demonstrate through a series of news reports that groups of 100% vaccinated people were getting quite sick with the thing that you vaccinated them against, or that autism was occurring all over the place because, or during vaccination, in largely vaccinated groups, you'd pause. If you practiced the precautionary principle, you would pause. So science clearly isn't a science. We can know that by the virtue of the fact that they don't want new ideas. They desperately don't want new ideas. We're desperate for no new ideas. Come on down. Come to the science fair. Be a cowardly cocksucker. Go get your PhD by gargling your professor's intellectual semen for 4 years to 6 years, maybe 8 years. Maybe you'll get your PhD in 7. Who knows? However much money you can pay the university, the better it is for you. Then you can get on a small team of slaves to figure out how nothing can happen in a laboratory. The open-minded PhDs who listen to this know exactly what I'm talking about. They know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're right. Fuck. You're right. We don't get anything done. We go around in circles. We all have to kiss this fucker's ass. I'm so tired of them. We were waiting for this person to retire, but then they didn't. And then we got another person we thought would be okay, but they weren't. We were going to promote from the inside, but then I never got my chance. And then I was going to change things, but I couldn't, so I quit. And then I decided to do something else. And then I just ended up working in a lab. I just ended up being a lab rat, working in a lab, starving plants and measuring one of the genes, some allele, measuring something all day long. I'm a scientist. I use this little piece of plastic. I use a pipette. Ooh, I'm a scientist. People on the inside know. They know. They're not doing what they signed up to do. The promise, it's like the military, They promise you you're going to go to foreign places and see all kinds of things, and you end up sitting on metal racks listening to some guy tell stories about how he used to fuck his cousin. It's the army. Go in and shoot people who are trying to hide from you. It's the army. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. It's a lie. They get you. It's the recruiter's lie. They lie to the young science kids. Oh, you're good at this. You could be a laboratory slave and suck a lot of academic cock for years, regurgitating the professor's semen onto the page. Okay, here's your PhD. Sorry, is that too visceral? I'm going to have to put a parental warning on this show. I almost made it through without being that vile. Alrighty, this has been the Liam Scheff Show on UCY TV and Truth Frequency Radio, where we tell the truth as I see it. And if you don't like it, I guess you can tell me that I'm arrogant and conceited like. And you could write me something on Facebook and like, maybe I'll tell you something like, you wrong, dude. The sun is heated on the outside, yo. I want to thank my mother for being very kind to me regarding my teeth. I very much appreciate it. She was very sympathetic, and we have not always gotten along, but I'm deeply, deeply appreciative when people are kind. And I really appreciated her saying, I really understand. I've had bad tooth things myself. So I am going to the dentist, and I will have some fillings, or perhaps I will simply get fitted with some zebra teeth, because they're awfully big. You can just put them right on top of mine. You can support this message of independent thinking. It is independent thinking, and you know it, by buying a book, Official Stories, It Won't Let You Down. I know I'm supposed to be writing my other book. Sometimes I am, actually. And then I feel like I reach more people by doing a radio show or by doing a video, which can get tens of thousands of hits, whereas my book, I don't know, you sell one to somebody, they recommend it to somebody, they give it a like, and then they move on to, whatever's on Hello Kitty on Facebook. I just feel like we're not a critical thinking culture. We want it in video format. We want little blurbs. I look at, the Corbett Report as a guy whose, mind I respect. I think that he's a good intellect. And, he's not writing a book. He's like, I'm going to put all my energy into doing this video shit because that's what the masses want. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm too old-fashioned. Only putting out on the second date and never going all the way. That's me. You'd be surprised. See you next time. Have a great week. I don't know what calamities will happen in the news, but don't believe most of them. Remember that growing food is the most important thing you can do. Coming up on the Liam Scheff Show in future episodes, we're going to get into aquaponics. Aquaponics has turned my interest. I finally turned to aquaponics. I'm very interested in the piping and the pumps and the fishies and the plants. I think that it's fun, and I think that Americans can be sold on something electrical that also grows food. I think that if it's not electrical, Americans are not interested in it. I guess it is an electric universe after all. See you on the next show. Thanks for being a willing companion on this strange, terribly offensive stream of consciousness. It is the American heretic Liam Scheff. See you next time.